Welcome to the Castle of Spirits podcast, the companion piece to the long-running ghost story website of the same name, where you can find 4,600 and counting true paranormal stories submitted by listeners and readers just like you. This is episode number 12. And in this episode today, Vince, we are going to talk about haunted hospitals.
Oh, yeah.
Heck yeah.
I would say that's one of my favorite subjects, but it's not. I don't really like hospitals.
No, hospitals are horrible, horrible places.
Well, they're wonderful places for people to go to get well. They're just not the kind of place that nobody enjoys having to be at the hospital, except unless you're gainfully employed at a hospital, and good for you. Thank you.
Right.
All that stuff. But when you throw in the potential for haunting that hospitals have, I'm surprised that there aren't more stories about haunted hospitals versus haunted homes.
Oh, I think there are plenty of haunted hospital stories. In fact, Vince, you and I are each going to share one. There's actually a lot. I was surprised. I just went to castleofspirits.com. I just plugging our URL. I just went to the website, and in the handy dandy search feature, I just typed hospital, and there were pages of stories. I was actually surprised. I thought that, maybe 6 or 7 would pop up, but there were a lot. And I think I found a really good one.
I think I found a pretty good one too. And just a little teaser for the later part of the episode, I've got haunted hospital news.
What?
I have haunted hospital news.
I mean, I heard what you said. It was a rhetorical what?
Oh, okay.
Well, now I'm just embarrassed.
What do you want to know?
I don't know.
Anyway, let's get on with the storytelling, shall we? Jane.
Why do you talk in that robotic voice?
Jane.
You know who you sounded like?
Who?
You sounded like Howard from
Better
Call Saul. With your robotic delivery.
Well, I can't move as robotically as he. I wish I could. But I digress.
As well you should.
And I have.
All right. So my story that I picked is called...
What's happening? I thought you were building tension or something, and now you look like you're about to sneeze.
No, I have a sneeze.
Oh, okay. We can edit this part out of the show.
Yeah. Okay, so my story is called The Ghost on the Cancer Unit, submitted by Carla in Texas, USA, October of 2015.
Wow. One of the more recent stories.
And it's a little bit of a longer story, but it's worth it, I promise.
All right.
So Carla says, I was a nurse on the oncology floor at my local hospital on the night shift. And I just want to say that the night shift, this is me, this is not Carla saying this. If you're going to work in a hospital on the night shift, I mean, there better be a ghost, right? What else is the night shift for? I mean, obviously it's for helping patients, but...
Either that or a masked serial killer coming after Laurie Strode. I mean, that could work.
There's a little Halloween 2 action there. Okay, on the
But
night.
that would be the emergency room area. So anyway, go on.
On the night shift, we had a patient who was in the process of what is termed actively dying. This means that the patient is in the final stages of dying and is not expected to live more than 24 hours. They're typically comatose at this point and heavily sedated for pain. As usual, this man's family was present at his bedside and had been for nearly a full day. The nurse who was in charge of his care was very conscientious, but fairly new on the cancer ward. At one point, she checked his vital signs and general appearance. Noting an improvement in his condition, she suggested that the family go home and rest for a while. They lived several hours away and were exhausted, so they jumped at the chance to shower and rest at home. Unfortunately, it is very typical of oncology patients to rally just a few hours before death, and this nurse wasn't familiar with this fact. The family left, and the patient died about an hour after they had gone. The poor nurse was devastated at her mistake, but dutifully called the family and told them that they needed to return immediately. Of course, it took them another hour to get back. About 5 minutes after his death, the nursing call light lit up in his room. Then the light in the room next door lit up, and so on up the entire hall toward the east. This took about the amount of time that it would have taken someone to walk into each room and pull the light cord. Then the light across the hall to the north came on. Once again, this took just about the amount of time that it would have taken someone to walk across the hall and enter that room to pull on the call light. After that, the lights started coming on back down the entire length of that side of the hall. You guessed it, just about the amount of time it would have taken for someone to walk into each room and pull the chain. Of course, there was a short pause, and then the light across the hall came on. After that, they each came on successively up the rest of that side until the circle was complete, and they came back to where it had all begun, at the dead man's room. Now every nursing call light on the wing was lit, even in the empty rooms.
Whoa.
I mean, that'll make for an eventful evening for...
Just a bit.
I mean, if I worked in a hospital at the night shift, this is the kind of stuff that I would be looking for. We nurses were just about to get up to check on our patients when our resident prankster walked up to the nursing station. Realizing that he hadn't been there when the lights had done their stunt, we all accused him of being the culprit. He adamantly denied it, so we each went to check on our patients, turning off their lights and those in the adjacent rooms that were empty. About 10 minutes later, the lights all came on again. It happened exactly the same way, one at a time in succession until every light on the ward was on. It started in the deceased man's room and circled back there again. This time, our prankster nurse was sitting next to me, so we knew he hadn't done it. Once again, we all went to turn off the lights. The charge nurse called building maintenance, and they sent a technician to check out the light system. Of course, he found no problem with it and left. About 5 minutes after that, the lights did their thing again. By this point, we were all starting to half-jokingly speculate about the deceased man's ghost playing pranks. No one wanted to admit that it might be true, but obviously everyone was thinking it. At last, the family returned. The funeral home was contacted and the body was removed. We all figured the problem would end then. But we were wrong. The lights did their thing once again. This time, after checking my patients and turning out their lights, I went to the dead man's room. The body was gone, but the room had not yet been cleaned and prepared for a new patient. I stood there and talked to him. I told him that I was sorry his family hadn't been present and that the nurse had made the mistake of sending them home. I told him that she regretted her mistake. I also asked him to quit messing with the lights because it was compromising our ability to care for the other patients. I then prayed for peace for his soul and left the room. The lights did not come back on again after that. I can't swear this was a ghost because I never saw, heard, or felt anything strange in the room. I just observed the situation with the lights as it started immediately after his death and stopped immediately after I had talked to his spirit and prayed for his peace. Thank you again to Carla in Texas, USA, in October of 2015 for sending us that story. And Carla, if you're out there still, if you happen to be listening to this, if you happen to have any other stories that, happen in the hospital, night shift or not, we would love to hear some updated stories from you.
Yeah, we would. That was a great story.
Yeah.
It was really eerie.
Yeah, it really was. And I mean, it's horribly sad too.
Yeah.
Very, very sad.
Well, I've found that, sometimes the scariest stories to me are ones that are actually also sad.
Mm-hmm.
Like this setting, there was some ambiance about it that reminded me a little bit of the Martin Scorsese movie, Bringing Out the Dead, with Nicolas Cage.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie had some pretty subtle yet creepy things.
Yeah. It's a really, really good movie. Was it 1999?
Something like that. It's one of Martin Scorsese's few non-gangster movies, but it's also one of his real hidden gems.
Yeah.
Little known gems.
Yeah, it really is. And a really great performance by Nicolas Cage, I thought. And I'm not a huge Nick Cage fan. You know, he has movies that I really like. I don't dislike the guy, but especially in the 2000s, if he's in it, you kind of go, do I want to see that? But yeah,
you know the whole theory about whether or not you can tell whether or not a Nicolas Cage movie is going to be good or bad based on the size or the length of his hairpiece.
And he's got short, thinning looking hair in this one. So
he looks natural in Bringing Out the Dead.
I don't know about natural, but more natural. Yeah.
Yeah. As natural as a Nicolas Cage can get.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll put Bringing Out the Dead in the attic at castleofspirits.com/attic. So if you haven't seen that before, you should definitely check that out. So, Vince.
Yes, Jane.
Do you have a story that you'd like to read?
I
Fine
do.
Folks today. You do.
My story is simply called Haunted Hospital #1, because there are a couple of different ones.
Mm-hmm.
This was written and submitted by Punsala from Sri Lanka.
Ooh.
In November of 2006.
Heck yeah.
This happened to my aunt a few years ago when she was expecting my twin cousins to be born. She was in the hospital, and this incident occurred on December 24th. My aunt went to sleep at around 11 at night, but she was awakened by a presence in the room. It was a young lady in a white dress, and my aunt thought that this was a nurse. She felt the lady taking the bedsheet and leaving. My aunt didn't think anything strange, but patiently waited in the dark hospital room until the nurse returned with a fresh sheet. Minutes passed, but she didn't return. My aunt began to feel cold, and finally, she rang the bell at her side to ask for assistance. Another nurse came, and my aunt explained to her that a nurse had come and taken her bedsheet, but hadn't yet returned it, and she was feeling cold. The nurse looked alarmed, and she said, "Please come with me. We'll change your room at once."
Ooh, wait a minute. The nurse who came when she pushed the button got freaked out and said, "We're going to change your room."
Yeah.
Ooh.
All at once, the hospital staff arrived and assigned her to a separate room. All of them were talking in upset voices and comforting my aunt.
Ooh.
She wondered why they'd made such a big fuss, but thankfully she didn't get frightened. The following day, they found the same sheet hanging on the fence that surrounded the hospital.
What?
Although the hospital didn't tell us the details, the way that they acted, disturbed and nervous, and why they had changed my aunt's room tells us that they knew that the mysterious lady who had taken the bedsheet was not really human, but a ghost. Later, we heard rumors that similar incidents occur in the same hospital room on the same day of every year. That was December 24th.
Yeah.
Apparently, a patient had died in that room, a lady, and since then, every year, on the same day she died, she is seen haunting the room, dressed in the same white dress that she wore on the day she died.
Stealing bed sheets.
Apparently so. The hospital staff is well aware of this, but they don't convey this information to the public or to the patients, as it would cause anxiety and worry, obviously.
They should stop putting people in that room on that day.
Agreed. And again, thank you to Punsala from Sri Lanka back in 2006 for submitting that story, Haunted Hospital. Now, I don't think that Punsala's aunt was lying.
No.
But, so this happens every 24th of December in the hospital in that room, right?
Apparently.
Or maybe it doesn't happen in that room. I was going to say.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe it happens in random rooms and they get freaked out and say, okay, this is the room she picked this year. Let's go. Because you'd think they have a team of nurses and you think at least one of them would say, oh, I'm really into finding out exactly what's going on here. And, kind of camp out in that room maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So it must be that it happens in different rooms.
Maybe.
Or elsewhere throughout the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
But why the woman would be changing sheets?
Well, maybe she's a prankster. Maybe it's something different every time. It doesn't have to always be a sheet.
That's true.
That's just what she did that time, maybe.
So, hey, if you're still out there Mansala, hit us up and let us know if you heard any more about this. This is 16 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's more stories to tell.
I sure hope so.
And just get in touch with us through the website, castleofspirits.com. And, I got some questions for you and your aunt. I tried to say aunt because I always say aunt. Mm-hmm. And I think it's weird.
Why?
I'm the only person I know who says aunt instead of aunt.
I say aunt.
You say aunt.
No, I don't.
And it sounded weird saying aunt, so I say aunt. Now, I've just now decided I'm not saying aunt ever again.
I'm pretty sure I say aunt.
Anyway, none of this is getting on the show.
I hope not. So, Vince, what do you think? Why do you think hospitals have a reputation for being haunted? What, a similar thing to the question that you asked last week about cemeteries, why would the person want to be hanging around the hospital? Or do you think that it's much more transient there? Like, it's not necessarily that somebody haunts a hospital on the reg. It's, that there's so much passing through a hospital, so many different people and patients and emotions and occurrences that there's just constantly energy passing through, causing some kind of disturbances that we feel.
Yeah, I think that there's
I guess I just answered my own question.
Yeah, you did. I was going to say, what are you asking me for? Apparently you know the answer. But no, I agree with you there. There's a lot of high anxiety that happens in hospitals. Mm-hmm. A lot of trauma. Mm-hmm. People get well at hospitals, but they're also sometimes never the same after being at the hospital.
Right.
And of the people who pass away in a hospital, I think that maybe that the place represents them being torn away from a life that they weren't done living yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like, because on the flip side of that, you have people who are being, cared for and being brought back from the brink of death, or people who are being born and entering life for the first time. And so maybe it's just that at hospitals, the veil is just very thin. It's just a place where, the separation between our world and another world is, there's a lot of overlap going on there.
And that could also be because the emotions that are experienced in a hospital are very extreme. I would imagine that in the maternity ward, there's lots of really positive energy and people really being ecstatic, and 2 floors below, there are people who are dying and people who are mourning.
Yeah, but I think that it's not so black and white like that. I mean, there's feelings of devastation and mourning in the maternity ward too, because not all babies are born healthy or, get to go home. And just like in the oncology ward, there's people who hit remission and are cured, and there's that elation there as well. So, yeah.
I do think that maybe
wild swings of emotion and mood. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the kind of stuff that causes poltergeists when you're talking about it being inside of an individual, like an adolescent girl. That's what parapsychologists typically blame poltergeist activity on.
Yeah. See, women, we are powerful.
Oh, you're so much more powerful than any of us know. But maybe a hospital is kind of like a body. It's a body that is inhabited by many different individuals, and they bring this sort of cacophony, this crazy mix of emotions. And then there's also the people who are not even in the hospital, who are thinking about somebody in the hospital.
Yeah, exactly.
Worrying about them, praying for them, all that kind of stuff. And so the hospital itself is kind of in the crosshairs of all this humanity.
Yeah.
And so you would think that like I said, if anywhere in the world is going to be haunted, it's going to be a hospital, not a cemetery so much. And maybe that explains it right there. I've heard stories even of hospitals not being haunted, but being portals to the past. There was this awesome story that a caller told on an old Art Bell show where they went into a hospital, they got on the elevator, they pushed the button for the 3rd floor, and then when they got out, they were in a different era. People were dressed differently.
Ooh, some time slip action.
They got some time slip action in the hospital. And then thankfully, they realized, or they got freaked out, or they realized what was going on. And they turned tail and went back in the elevator and said, oh, let's just go back down to the lobby.
Right.
And then it was over.
I would love to experience a time slip.
I rather like hearing about them. I don't really want to experience something like that because, I mean, if you're ready to go, you're like, let's split. Let's live in another time. I'm ready to go. I've cut all my ties. I paid all my bills.
Well, we're talking about a time slip. We're not talking about
But you could get stuck.
Time uprooting and moving away.
But if you get yourself into a time slip and you don't turn around and jump back in the elevator and go, oh God, I mean, how many people, how do we know that some of these unsolved and mysterious disappearances aren't people falling out of time?
Yeah, it's true.
We know that there are lots and lots of records of people who mysteriously vanished. But we don't have a lot of records about people who mysteriously appeared. We have some. And even those usually can be explained away. But maybe if somebody appears somewhere, you know, if they appear in 14th century France.
Yeah.
They wouldn't last long.
No, probably not.
I certainly wouldn't.
No. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, you know, oh, look, everything looks different for a sec. Oh, no, it's back to normal now.
Yeah.
That's a time slip.
Okay, so I was talking more like a time fall.
No.
Time fall and break your ankle.
You're talking about like a time crash and burn.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, I think that a hospital is definitely a place where something like that could happen. You said it perfectly. It's this crosshairs of humanity. To put it into perspective, if you think about a grocery store, mostly just because we were at the grocery store today, you know, there's a lot of people in the grocery store and a lot of people come and go from the grocery store every single day. But certainly some, but very few of them, I imagine, are having extreme emotions one way or the other while they're at the grocery store.
I don't know, man. When I go down the chip aisle.
when they have my chips. Or when they don't have my chips, then.
Right. Yeah, no, that hospital is like, it's almost like a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Of thoughts and feelings and energy.
Yeah.
And then there's another
moving toward death, moving toward life.
Right.
All of those things, yeah.
And that's that's what it's all about. That's like the biggest thing in the world to everybody is their own existence or the existence of their loved ones. And then another thing I just thought of right now is there's a lot of equipment in hospitals. There's a lot of electronic equipment. Oh,
yeah. There's going to be like lots of EMF stuff going on.
Right. And you've got MRIs, MRI machines.
I do love a good MRI. I know. I'm weird. But anyway.
Well, if you have to have an MRI, it's good that you enjoy having one. I would just rather not have to have one.
They're pretty fun.
Yeah. But those machines are very powerful. I remember I went with you and, you know, everybody knows this, but I didn't know it at the time. They warn you about bringing in anything, any kind of...
Yeah.
You can't wear any jewelry when you go in there. Otherwise, you'll get stuck to the wall.
That's what they say.
But even the people who come with you, they say, you don't bring in anything metal. You know, does your jacket have any zippers, that kind of thing?
No, not to go into the lobby.
No, but into the back room. Back waiting room. And I was like, should I be here? I mean, maybe I should go out in the lobby, or maybe better yet, the parking lot.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's cars in the parking lot getting sucked up against the building.
Exactly.
Well, that's where they do the MRIs, obviously.
So I think I have a theory, and completely unfounded theory, that hospitals are these vortices.
Vortices.
Vortices? Vorticipodes. Where
Vorti.
all this crazy stuff happens. Vorti, that sounds better. Where all these paranormal things can happen. And it's because of the emotion and also because of the electromagnetic and other stuff kind of energy.
Yeah, it's got to amplify things somehow, or at least gives energy, is like ambient energy that's easy to grab onto from, that ghosts are able to kind of latch onto and use that energy.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point.
Before. Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about the poor guy that died in your story.
Uh-huh.
I kind of would like to think that he wasn't angry that his family didn't get back in time to, say goodbye to him or be there when he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But I also wonder, well, why didn't he go with the family when they left?
Well, maybe that's not possible. I mean, it's easy for us to say, well, why didn't the ghost just fly on over there? But we don't even know if that's possible.
It's like the guy is stuck there, but maybe there's something about the EMT fields or the
EMF fields.
EMT. There are EMTs.
We're sticking around for the EMTs.
Well, some of them are very attractive people.
They're
all
point.
young.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are young, vibrant, healthy. They need to be able to pick somebody up, so they're strong.
Mm-hmm.
So they're fine specimens, I would say, I guess.
Yeah, and everyone loves a uniform.
You'd think, although I did some security work.
I bet you looked hot in that little security guard uniform.
I looked terrible. Nobody looked at me and said, "Boy, you look hot." I only kept that job for 2 days, thankfully.
It's because you didn't look hot in your uniform?
And I didn't get to carry a gun or a baton or mace, just a walkie-talkie. My job was to look out for suspicious activity, pick up the walkie-talkie and scream for help, and somebody else would call the police.
You didn't even get to call the police? Like, no. That wasn't even part of your job? Call the police?
I mean, I guess if I was doing it, if I had stayed there long enough, they would have given me my own post or something. I don't know. But that didn't sound too exciting to me. Plus, they made me cut my hair, and I resented it. I digress.
As well you should.
Now you may be wondering why it was that I thought that talking about haunted hospitals or hauntings in hospitals would be a good idea for today's show.
I mean, aside from the obvious that it's creepy as hell, yeah.
Right. But I also came across a very interesting story.
I do like very interesting stories, and I know that our friends at home or wherever you are when you're listening to this right now. Hey, if you're listening to this and you're actually in a hospital, just shoot us a message and let us know. You can do that at castleofspirits.com/lounge. Let us know why you're listening to our podcast in the hospital and if that hospital has any goings-on going on.
And we hope you feel better.
Yes. I mean, if they're working there.
Oh.
They probably feel
Well, we
okay.
still hope they feel better. But
yeah.
But you know what? If you work in a hospital, we appreciate you.
Yeah.
The real heroes right there. Anyway, so I came across this story online about something that happened in a hospital in Argentina.
Okay.
And it comes with a video that you can see on YouTube.
I do like a video.
And we will share that in the show notes. So go to the show notes. We'll have a link to the video on YouTube. In the video, you can see the moment that a hospital security guard said he greeted a visitor that he later learned was the ghost of a patient who had died that night.
What?
This incident occurred at the Finocchieto Sanatorium in the city of Buenos Aires. At around 3 a.m, the guard says he was at the front desk when an elderly woman came through the automatic doors and said she had left something behind in her room.
Yeah, her body.
Shut up.
Sorry.
So he gets up, he takes down her information, and he directs her into the building for her to go get her stuff. when she didn't return a few hours later, he called the floor that she was headed to, and they told him that no such woman had come to the floor that night, which piqued his curiosity. He was thinking, well, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
He went back to his paperwork, and he told them the name of the woman and that she was headed to room 915 where she had stayed. And the people on the other end of the phone told him, yeah, no, that lady passed away this evening.
Mm.
And there's video.
Okay.
Of course, now in the video, okay, I'll just let you see it.
Okay. Yeah, please do. Okay. So a security guard sitting at the counter, the door's open, nobody's coming in. Nobody came through the doors.
But the door's opened.
He just opened the rope.
He's interacting with somebody who is not there.
He is straight up talking to someone and like checking them into the hospital. There's no... Yeah, he's like gesturing and pointing, telling somebody where to go. There's... What the hell? And then he walks off in that direction. He's like offering a wheelchair.
So I was going to say, does it look to you like he offers them a wheelchair?
Yeah, he was totally offering someone a wheelchair who clearly said no because he put it away and now he's going back to his... Weird. So when you said that there was video, I thought, oh, it's just going to be a video of a guy talking to an old woman and then, you know, we're just going to believe that that was this old woman who died. But there is nobody there. But that door clearly opened and then closed. And he doesn't seem like he's acting. Because if you're acting, I think that you make your motions much more obvious. And, you know, look at me talking to somebody who isn't there with grand hand gestures. And, you know, I'm going to pretend to shake this person's hand who's obviously not there. You're going to amp it up a little bit. But
well, actors sometimes have to be taught how to walk and how to stand. You know, don't stand with your hands in your pockets. Just hang them at your sides. And that's the hardest thing to do. This guy looks very, very natural.
He was straight up like, yeah, because he like pointed down the hall. Okay, like you go this way after he did the check, you know, the clipboard check-in thing. And then he went back to his desk and he put his clipboard down and he looked like he was going to sit down. But then he turned around and looked like he was talking to someone, went over and got a wheelchair and looked like they were saying, oh, do you need a wheelchair? No. Okay. Yep. Down there. Okay. Bye. And walked back to his desk.
Yeah. That was one of the weirdest things I've seen.
That's creepy.
Anyway, again, it's a video on YouTube.
And if you're listening to this episode on YouTube, there's a link in the video description below.
That's right. The video is called El Fantasma del Sanatorio Finocchieto. Yes, I said that wrong. And while you're at YouTube, why don't you go check out our Castle of Spirits YouTube channel?
Right, where you can listen to these podcast episodes and see them with some creepy, cool, I think they're creepy, cool backgrounds that just kind of give some ambiance. You know, you can kind of watch it and it can be a little hypnotizing if you want to, or you can completely ignore it. But yeah, I try not to put backgrounds on there that are too attention grabbing and distracting, but that are calming and spooky and interesting if you do want to watch it.
And so if you do find us on YouTube, like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Or if you're listening to this, be sure to subscribe to this podcast.
Yeah, and the obligatory, please subscribe and give us a rating on iTunes.
Yeah, if you can give us a review on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah,
because apparently
that's how podcasts make it.
That is worth gold.
Yeah,
and we've got some really cool reviews there. As a matter of fact,
are you going to read a review? I am. Well, while you get your review to read, I'm going to get something that I'm going to read.
Awesome. So, Behemoth39 left us a 5-star review.
Heck yeah.
Titled, Love It. Loved listening to the creepy stories. I can't wait to see what you both do with the podcast, as I'm sure it's going to be amazingly spooky if Vince can ever learn how to pronounce words. Oh, that part, I added that part on.
Well, they could have added that part. It would have been appropriate.
I would have appreciated that. And another one here, NS Exile said, spooky greatness.
Heck yeah.
The new COS podcast is awesome. Vince and Jane have a wonderful rapport that makes you feel like you're sitting there with friends having a fireside conversation about the paranormal.
Oh, I love it.
They then throw in some ghost stories, which are expertly read.
Thank you.
That was very nice of you. A little bit too kind.
How generous.
With perfect delivery. Maybe Jane's. I'm loving each episode and I can't wait to hear more. Well, thank you very much. You're about to hear more because you're going to hear this one.
That's right.
So,
and we have an email that I was just excited to get. So I wanted to read this email that we received. So Brady emailed and said, here I was sitting at the computer and a random thought came across my mind. I used to read horror stories all the time. What was that site? Oh yeah, Castle of Spirits. Now here I am thinking, no way that's still a site. And to my nostalgic delight, here it is. I just wanted to say thank you for memories I had as a kid surfing this site and for still being here. Brady, thank you for your email. That really made my day when we got that. Thank you for, hanging out on the site and for checking back in. And I hope that you will still join us from time to time. Do a little more surfing with some new, read some new stories.
And of course, we can't take credit for that, for what you were. We can only take credit for taking over the website recently.
Yeah. We were surfing the site with you back then, Brady.
Right. The site was founded in 1997 by Rowena Gilbert from Australia. She sadly passed away, and the site was handed over to Don Wilmshurst, who actually ran the site longer than Rowena ever ran it.
Yeah.
Ever had an opportunity to run it.
Now here we are, and we're fixing to break Don's record. He had it for 14 years, so we only have 14 years left to go before we break his record. Oh, we do have a new message in the lounge. Hopefully somebody can help Yvette out here. I am not positive what the answer to her question is, but Yvette says, hello, I've been a big fan since 1998. Ooh, she goes way back. She's like an OG fan. When I was a college student, my how time flies, for reals. My two favorite stories that creep me out to this day are The Voice in the Attic and The Matron of the York Hostel.
I love both those stories.
But there are so many others that have scared me over the years. Anyway, I think I'm going crazy, but I need to know if I read this here or not. A couple of years ago, there was a story making rounds on the internet and YouTube. It's called The Smiling Man. I swear I have read a story very similar to it or the exact story here on COS. In the one that I read, the storyteller says they were out walking at night and saw a man wearing a top hat dancing in a strange square pattern over and over by a streetlight. After this, I can't remember much. But then fast forward to a few years ago and the Smiling Man becomes popular, and I was thinking, I've heard or read this before. Please, can you clarify if this story is on the website? Love from Texas. Yvette, thank you for that email. I did a quick search in the archive and I didn't find it. I mean, if you just search smiling, a lot comes up. I searched a few of the other keywords that she said and I didn't find anything, at least not with a title that made it obvious that it was the story she was talking about. But so if anyone is familiar with this, I know that there is a creepypasta out there called The Smiling Man, but as to whether or not there's one on the COS website, I'm not positive. What about you, Vince?
Well, I was going to say, is it possible it's listed under the spookiest stories or the classics?
I don't think so.
Well, maybe one of our dutiful listeners
Yes.
can help us out, and maybe we'll be able to find that.
You guys feel free to, submit to us anything that you think we might find interesting or questions, or just pop in and say hi or whatever you want to do.
Or pop in and say boo.
Or boo.
That works too.
We are here for all of it, friends.
Just make sure I'm not drinking something, I may choke.
I guess that's my job. Make sure you're not drinking something before.
Yeah, Jane has this propensity for coming up and spooking me.
Well, you're just so easily spooked.
Well, that's how I'm predispositioned apparently. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, we are ones who enjoy and appreciate the fright.
You don't seem to enjoy it too much when I scare you, intentionally or otherwise.
I prefer it when I see it coming. That's my favorite kind of spook.
How do you get scared when you see it coming? Oh, you know what? We need to tell people.
I got pretty spooked at Barbarian. We watched the other night.
We did. We just watched that new film, Barbarian, and I don't want to give anything away. Nothing. Just go watch it.
Don't watch the trailer.
Don't read anything about it. Don't look and see who's in it. Just watch Barbarian, and then hit us up in the lounge and let us know what you thought of it.
Yeah, it's one of the first movies in a very long time. In fact, one of the first movies that I can ever remember actually literally and quite loudly screaming.
Yeah, you did.
Was it a scream or more like a yell?
It wasn't a scream, but
it was like a yell of surprise.
You verbalized your surprise.
There might as well have been
and
your Black Widow on my lap.
Yeah. Your verbalization of your surprise startled me just as much as what was happening on the screen.
The last time I remember being that spooked in a movie was when we watched the Mothman Prophecies. Mm-hmm. And that was at least 12 or 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was freaking me out so bad that I stopped the movie, got up, turned off the lights, and said, okay, let's start it, let's rewind it a little bit, because I was getting so creeped out and I loved that feeling.
Yeah.
So yeah, go see Barbarian, go see Mothman Prophecies.
Yeah. So I don't think I have anything else for the good fine folks today. What about you?
I am always at a loss for what to say at this juncture. However, I do want to implore everybody to stay scared. I don't know.
Well, you sounded scared.
Did I?
Yeah.
And I've been taking acting lessons.
Have you?
I have. There's a YouTube channel. I mean, they just basically show you. There's not actually a YouTube channel that I'm watching to take acting lessons. I'm just watching.
You're just
clips.
Watching movies.
Yeah, I'm just watching really dramatic clips of movies and trying to recreate them.
Oh.
I'm doing the whole. I already graduated past the whole. Are you talking to me? That sort of thing. And I
don't think it's working.
No. Well, the next one I'm going to try is Stella. Hey, Stella.
Please don't. Anyway, stay scared, friends.
Do it.